This is the fiscal year 24 budget ordinance. The budget is $99,556,000.
We need to be open with the residents of Georgetown County concerning these tax increases that are built into the 23-24 budget. Could you briefly just go over those, the millage increase and how much that will end up affecting the budget, if you could?
Okay, I'll try to do it off the top of my head.
That's good.
Okay. County Fire District, the total millage increase in County Fire District would be 7.9 mils, and that would cost the taxpayer with a $200,000 home, valued home, about $63.20, I think it was. And in Midway Fire District, it's 6.9 mils, and that would cost the Midway Fire District taxpayer with a $200,000 home about $55.20.
And was there one on the general?
I believe that's $43 and...
How many mills?
That would be 5.9 mils. And those would be anybody who lives like in the city of Georgetown or town of Andrews or Murrells Inlet District, where they're not, they have their own fire service, so they wouldn't be subject to that extra millage for fire.
Ms. Langston, the increases you were talking about, those increases are on top of what the taxpayers are paying now? So
on top of what the taxpayers are, yes. It would be an increase to what their tax notice would increase by that amount, or about that amount.
And those figures right now is included within the $99 million budget that we are proposing?
Yes,
that you're proposing?
That's already included.
If we maxed it out, if we maxed that millage rate out this year, how much more of an increase would it be on a $100,000 or a $200,000 house? Could you briefly do the math in your head for me?
I know that 1 mill costs the taxpayer $8 in additional taxes. So if we raise it 2.8, you're looking at like $8 for $20.
So if we did it 4.8, we're looking at 30 some odd dollars.
Well, the numbers that I've already quoted you already include the two mills that we already suggested. So if you went 2.8 more, you'd be looking at, like, instead of the 63, you'd be looking at 83.
Okay. And that's not to include the other mills in the other areas, correct?
The 1.9 in the law enforcement.
Okay. The $63 already includes the millage increase for general fund law enforcement. And,
it's all
and
inclusive.
That's already included altogether. So if you're just talking general fund, then that's all we can do. And I'll just throw it out there that we've maxed out law enforcement, and law enforcement doesn't have any rollback because we max them out every year.
Yeah. If we increased it, those additional 2 mills, and allocated it to the law enforcement, that money is, from here on, cannot be used for the running of the county except for law enforcement. No matter if we needed it
for hurricane,
for whatever, it's law enforcement. We can't touch it. Is that correct?
I don't think that raising the millage in the general fund and transferring the money to law enforcement is like, if you do it this year, by law you have to do it forever. But because that's going to, you're kind of giving them the money and then they get to spend it, but they're going to need it to sustain themselves every year, because you got to remember that when we give them an increase this year, then they get that, they don't get more money, but they're still getting it next year and the next year and the next year. And all the new employees get it and the next year and the next year and the next year. So it's kind of, it's not like it's a 1 year thing.
So if we went back and took it back from them because we went into a recession in the near future and our revenues dried up in the county. In order for us to just keep operating, and we went and had to take those 2 mills back from law enforcement, that revenue, to use as county purposes, then law enforcement would be left with laying off or reducing workforce or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we do that this year, and we come down to 2024-25 budget, and we have a low population growth and a low CPI, what would we could potentially have less than a meal or a meal availability to increase in the next budget? Does that make sense? I'm looking into the future.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, if we max out this year, then whatever our cap is for next year, that's the cap. So if our cap is 1.5%, then all we can do is 1.5%.
And we will not be able to go back on the rollback.
We won't. We don't have any rollback left
because we've used it this year.
Mm-hmm.
So it appears that that we possibly would be rolling the dice, so to speak, if we maxed it out this year, allocated it for future years, and then something happens and we need it, we have no fallback.
Pretty much.
We don't have enough money to fulfill all the needs from the general fund, so we need to find some other revenue source. So I think the community and the public needs to understand that in order for us to get more income and revenue to the county, we have to find ways to support the development of our counties to move things forward so that we won't be putting such a huge burden on the taxpayers. And it'll be with the development that's coming aboard. Okay, you've heard the report and you've had several questions for Ms. Langston. Is there a motion regarding ordinance number 23-14?
So moved.
It's moved for approval of ordinance, for second reading approval of ordinance number 23-14 is by Councilman Mercado. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Motion carries.